Hello and welcome back. We are going to talk about the Keynesian model in our aggregate supply and aggregate demand model. And we're going to look at how shifters of aggregate demand can really affect the economy. Now, you have, and mainly what we'll focus on in this course is we're going to look at the neoclassical or classical model, and we'll look at the Keynesian model. For the most part, most people follow, don't necessarily like. There are a lot of critics out there about the Keynesian model. I'm looking at you, Austrian school, libertarians and free market and all that stuff. However, the Keynesian model is always used, at least when you hear public policy in today's world. So most mainstream economists, I guess I should say, or could say, follow the Keynesian model, or at least understand that the Keynesian model is the most popular model. There are still a lot of classical economists out there, and so that also needs to be realized. So let's look at the Keynesian model and what the typical Keynesian model refers to. Right. So if we look at the Keynesian model, Keynes, right, John Maynard Keynes, you'll notice that with increases, there's no real increase in output. It's just increases in prices in the long run, right? And as Keynesian would say, in the long run, we're all dead. He also talked about prices and wages being sticky, and he discussed something called animal spirits. Basically, just this idea that people do what economists say that people do. They're motivated by these incentives, and they do what they do. If you look at this model, basically what Keynes is saying, and you notice that the aggregate supply model looks like this, right? It's got this aggregate supply curve that looks like this, okay? And basically what Keynes is saying is, if you have aggregate demand, this is where our potential GDP is. If you have aggregate demand here and we are in a recession, right, meaning that we're producing way less than what we're supposed to be producing, you can keep increasing aggregate demand. But as you increase, or as aggregate demand increases, right, this is kind of where it's going to stay. You can't really go anymore in the short run. There's no possibility to create more. You don't have the ability to do it. So any increases in aggregate demand are only going to be price increases, right? You'll notice here that the price level just keeps increasing and increasing. And you're only left with inflation. You're not left with any more output. You're only left with higher prices, right? And the same over here. If we're looking at our aggregate supply this way, if we are already here and we do go into a recession, now you'll notice that there may be some small changes in prices, but as we go into a recession, right, remember the neoclassical model said, oh, people will accept lower wages and they'll pay lower prices. No, he's saying that the price level right here is sticky. It won't go any lower. It won't do that. Because as you find yourself in a recession and you notice that output keeps going down, it only results in lower economic growth. There is no people will accept lower wages and pay lower prices. That doesn't occur because of certain things in the economy, whether it be labor unions, whether it be fixed costs and those types of things. People just, it doesn't work that way because prices and wages are sticky, right? Meaning they're sticky because they stay right here. Once this price level hits here, it's there and it won't go any lower. And you can't get aggregate demand to go back up, right? you have to create some type of policy stimulus, right? Meaning if consumer spending is low and business investment spending is low, it's decreasing, right? We won't worry about net exports right now. There's only one agency in aggregate demand, and that is increase government spending. If you increase government spending, you can, and we'll talk about this with fiscal policy, you can get consumer spending to go back up, and you can get investment spending to go back up. And we'll talk about, well, how can the government do that, right? The government can spend, and they can also affect taxes and subsidies and those types of things. Okay, so that is the Keynesian model. The Keynesian model says any economic growth is just going to result in higher prices, and any decrease in aggregate demand is just going to affect GDP. Price level will stay the same. Price level can sometimes even go up, and prices and wages are sticky, right? They are not flexible. In the classical model, they are flexible. In the Keynesian model, they are not flexible. So whenever you hear a question that says, assume prices and wages are flexible, you're using the neoclassical model. If you see something say, prices and wages are not flexible, you are using the Keynesian model in your theory. Okay? All right. Until next time.